think that there's a lot to the institution of fair idea. It sort of reminds me of, are you familiar with the book, The Celtic Way of Evangelism? I think it's Hunter. So he talked about how St. Patrick was so successful in his mission. And what made him so successful is that when he would go to a pagan village, he would take a group, about 80 people, and he would put basically an alternative village right next to them, but that had porous lines. It wasn't walls, it was porous, so that people could go back and forth, and people could have relationships with other people, and that they could turn those conversations towards the kingdom. And there was only 2 rules that existed inside the Christian community: no violence, and no violence. But they were those things that made the kingdom peaceable. And what they would do is they would establish these so that the relationships could happen, so people could hear the gospel, get their questions answered, come to faith, and that was sort of the model that he reproduced. And I think a similar thing is happening too, because people are so closed off and choking in how we've fragmented society that they just want real life. A lot of kids are leaving the church when they get in their college in their early 20s because the wildness and the thrill of real life isn't what's captured in the church, because the church is it's a dance that nobody wants to dance anymore. And I think when you come to places, when you finally can push out of all that and push away from it, and it's harder to say than to do, because God confronts you with all kinds of your own stuff when you start to step away, your own fears, your economic insecurities, because this kind of work doesn't pay at all. You don't get a good retirement plan with it. There's a book called 1,000 Resurrections. Have you ever heard of it? It talks about doing community-based work, and the book is a story of a woman's life, but the title says it all. She says, I've died 999 times, and God's resurrected me 1,000 times. Right? So the hope is in the resurrection, not in avoiding death or discomfort. And that's really true. I think what God is doing is He's trying to get the church to be salt and light again, to get us out into relationships, and in order to have conversations that matter, because for years the conversation we had was to try to win, was to try to argue, to try to have all the answers. And I'm not saying we don't have answers. I'm just saying that suffering people could care less about your answers, and they care a whole lot whether you love them and what's going on.